So a very quick introduction. My name is Elaine. I'm the senior international student advisor here at ISSA, and I'm joined tonight by my colleague. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dulce Cordova, and I am a student immigration advisor with ISSA, and I'm happy and excited to be here with Elaine.
Yeah, thank you. So very quickly, we're gonna go ahead and look over the agenda for today. So today the agenda is that what you can, some takeaways for your STEM OPT overview is what do I need to know about my STEM OPT eligibility? How and when do I request my STEM OPT I-20 from ISSA? What do I need to know about the required I-983 and application materials? How do my reporting requirement change while on STEM OPT? Then we're going to have a brief live Q&A session after this. So just know that today there's a lot of repetition and there's a lot that we're going to cover. But feel free to go on ISSA website. We have a whole page dedicated just for STEM OPT eligibility, how to submit the I-983, reporting for STEM. So go ahead. If you miss out something, we record this. You can go back and look through the video or go on ISSA website under employment. You will find the STEM OPT on info on our website. So STEM OPT, what is STEM OPT? STEM OPT is actually a OPT, which is a 24-month extension of your current post-completion OPT work authorization for certain F1 student. So if you're an F1 student currently on post-completion OPT, if you're STEM eligible, STEM OPT gave you another 24-month of extension towards your post-completion OPT. So that is for those that are F1 students, STEM qualified. Make sure that your major and your zip code that is listed on your I-20 is STEM qualified. All right. So next, your STEM OPT eligibility. Student who actually is what do you call that? Eligible for STEM OPT. All right. So student that receive a STEM designated degree. All right. STEM designated degree is listed on your I-20. You maintain your F1 status. You are currently authorized for post-completion OPT. Your employment opportunity is more than 20 hours a week, which is considered full-time. And you are not granted more than one STEM extension in the past. All right. We're going to talk a little bit more on this because your STEM for STEM OPT, you're only eligible for STEM OPT extension twice in your lifetime. So if you've already used 2 times your STEM OPT in the past, then you're no longer eligible for STEM. So if you have done more than one STEM in the past, then you're not eligible. But other than that, just make sure that if you have done STEM in the past, make sure that your STEM OPT extension now is on a higher level, on a higher degree level. All right. So you also completed your Form I-983 with your employer. Very importantly, for STEM OPT, unfortunately, not like post-completion OPT, you cannot be self-employed. You must have a supervisor, and the supervisor must be an employee of the company. All right. And the employer for STEM OPT would have to be participate in the E-Verify program. So in short, all STEM OPT employer would need to be E-Verified. Your application would need to be received by USCIS before your current post-completion OPT EAD card expiration date. So make sure to be eligible for STEM, that is what you need to complete. Next here. All right. So post-completion OPT versus STEM OPT. All right. We did a little chart here. Do you need a job to apply? For post-completion, no. But for STEM, you would need a job in hand already to apply for STEM OPT. And then can work before receiving EAD? Yes, because if you have a post-completion, you're continuing your STEM OPT. Unlike OPT, you need to wait for your EAD card. For STEM OPT, you can continue to work your job as long as your STEM OPT is pending. You submitted the application. You can work up to 180 days, all right, if you file it timely. Self-employed for OPT, yes, you can. For STEM OPT, no, you cannot. You would need a supervisor to be eligible for STEM OPT. So what are the reporting responsibility? A lot of times in post-completion OPT, you just report your physical address, right? Your employment information. If any change happens, you can do it via SEVP portal or you report it through ISSA. STEM OPT, there is reporting responsibility. You would have to report to ISSA every 6 months since the date your STEM OPT starts. So every 6 months, you would need to do an OPT reporting, and you would have to complete 2 self-evaluation within that 24 months of your OPT. So every year, 1 year, 12 months, you would have to complete an I-983 self-evaluation. And you would have to report all address and employment information during your STEM OPT. Address change, employment change, material change, all those would have to be reported during STEM OPT. Application timeline, usually on post-completion OPT, like most of you is currently on OPT, you usually can apply throughout your grace period. Unfortunately, for STEM OPT, you would have to apply to USCIS before your current OPT EAD card ends. So you would have to get your application in before your current EAD card ends, all right? There's no grace period for application for STEM OPT. All right. Completing the I-983. I-983 is another new thing, especially for a post-completion OPT student. It is specifically for STEM, okay? So the I-983, a lot of times you can hear people say Form I-983 or the STEM OPT training plan. So it is actually a form, a training plan that defines what your role, your goals, and objective is during STEM OPT, and who is your supervisor, the employer oversight and assessment plan for your whole experience. So you would have to list out everything on that I-983 training plan. So there is portion that you would fill out. There is also portion that your employer would fill out. All right, so when is Form I-983 needed? It is needed for every employer while on STEM OPT. So if you have a new employer, you would need to file a new I-983 form with your employer. It is also, you would have to complete the form before requesting STEM OPT I-20 in ISSA link. A new Form I-983 is required when you're starting a new employment. Or you have changes that are made within 10 days. So let's just say your supervisor change or your work site change. If there's any goal that changes, you would have to do that. ICE or USCIS may request a copy, and we have been seeing it more and more often that it is now required to be uploaded on your CVIS record. So a lot of times we ask that you keep your I-983 training plan on hand. It is like a live document. You always want to update it, especially when you have evaluation, the 12-month evaluation, or any changes towards your I-983 or any changes at all on your employment side. You want to update that I-983. You do not need to submit the I-983 when filing I-765. You just have to submit the I-983 for us to issue you your STEM OPT I-20. Then you and then the next time you probably want to submit the I-983 is when you're doing your reporting, your STEM OPT reporting. So this is a little overview of the I-983 training plan. And the ISSA website has section 1 information listed, but otherwise ISSA cannot provide guidance on completing I-983. Complete every section of pages 1 to 4. You would have to do that. We can advise you the section 1 portion. other than that, the other pages is between you and your employer. So there's part that you would have to fill out, and there is part that you and your employer and supervisor would have to fill it out. Okay. So the school recommending it, University of Notre Dame DULAC, the STEM degree earned, and if you're using your Notre Dame degree, then you put University of Notre Dame. There is a school code right there. Do not worry. If you want to take a picture, great. Don't worry too much about it. All this information is on ISSA website, okay? That is like step by step, we're telling you what to do. You can look at your current OPT I-20. Whoever DSO that signs your I-20, you can list their name on there. And then the contact information, you can just put ISSA email on there. Okay, then the rest is your information on there. And then another thing that we want to bring you to attention is the based on prior degree, right? A lot of students got confused. They said, I already got my Notre Dame degree. That's my prior degree. They check yes. So if you're applying based on your recent Notre Dame degree that you just gotten and did your post-completion OPT, then your answer is no, unless you are trying to do unless currently you are on an OPT that is not STEM eligible, but somehow you have a STEM eligible degree in your bachelor's, and then you want to continue it and then use your STEM based on that other degree that is STEM eligible, then you can put yes here. Or like if you have two masters, right? One right now when you're doing OPT is not STEM, you have other degree that is STEM, then you put yes, then you would have to explain later on the zip code and different thing. But if you are using a Notre Dame degree and you're currently STEM eligible with that Notre Dame degree, make sure you check no. So for my 93 material changes, what are material changes? Material changes may include if you change your employer, if you're a change of employer name or employer identification number, right? A lot of times, for example, Facebook changed their name to Meta. A lot of the STEM student would have to update their I-983 for that change. So that is considered a material change, right? Any reduction in compensation from the amount previously submitted. So if you look at page 2 or 3, where you would have to list your compensation, if there is any reduction, you would have to update that as well. Any significant decrease in hours of engagement. STEM OPT needs to be full-time. So you need to work 20 hours or more to be considered full-time per week, right? Any decrease in that hour, you would have to report that. Any changes of site of employment or employer address, you would also have to report that. So let's just say you started off working STEM OPT in location A. In the middle of that STEM OPT, they relocate you and they put you in location B. Then you would have to update your I-983 and submit a copy of that update as a STEM OPT reporting. So why are material change important? Any material change to the I-983 require the student to submit a new or updated I-983 to ISSA. So any changes at all, make sure you report it to us. Part of it is when you are being audited, we have that file in place to show that, hey, yes, the student actually reported to us and you do that change and all these different things. So make sure on STEM OPT, the one thing you have to remember after your STEM OPT is approved is that reporting is very important. Any changes, report it to ISSA. So another requirement or eligibility for STEM OPT is that your employer must be in E-Verify program. Again, very straightforward. STEM OPT employer needs to be E-Verify to be eligible for you to apply for STEM OPT. All right, there's no shortcut to it. It just have to be for STEM OPT, they have to be E-Verify. Unlike post-completion OPT, it can be any employment as long as you have employment.
Elaine, someone in the chat asked what an E-Verify employer is.
Okay, an E-Verify employer is usually an employer that participates in a government program that they are they are participating in E-Verify program. A lot of times you can ask your HR, your employer HR. They usually, if they are participating in E-Verify, they do have an E-Verify number. If they are not, then they can probably start applying. The company or the employer would have to go through that process to be E-Verified by the government as an employer. So that is E-Verify. So E-Verify comes with a number. Usually is between, I think, seven digits, 7 to 9 digits, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you can find your employer if whether they're E-Verify or not on the everify.gov. Otherwise, you can easily check with your HR department from your employer. All right, I am going to pass it over to Dulce.
Awesome. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you for that. So Elaine, we're going to talk a little bit about what that process looks like and that timeline. You've already done post-OPT, so a lot of this information will seem to be the same steps with the addition of that I-983 form. Elaine, if you can swipe to the next slide. So here's like just a nice little visual about those steps for that OPT. The first step, obviously, is that you and your employer will work together to complete the I-983 form. And then you will use the same way that you apply for post-OPT. You're going to go to ISSA link. You're going to request a STEM extension OPT I-20. And you will need to have your I-983 completed before you submit that request on ISSA link. In the meantime, you're preparing your documents. We will issue you an OPT, an I-20 with the OPT STEM extension listed on it. And you're going to log into your USCIS account because you probably already have one because you submitted an OPT application in the past. And then you're going to file the I-765 application. Once you submit all of that, it's the same thing as the post-OPT. You're just waiting for your authorization to come through. It's also important to note before Elaine goes on to the next slide that you are going to, when you file that STEM OPT extension, when you file that I-765 application, you want to make sure that you select the correct option for why you're applying. You're applying for STEM OPT, as Elaine mentioned before, is the option C3C. And next slide. So you are familiar with the I-20. This particular I-20 does have in the second page, and you can see that there's a post-completion OPT full-time. This particular student was approved from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. And so this particular person is going to apply and have his start date for STEM OPT. Sorry, Elaine. Oops. There you go. Thank you. The start date is going to be July 1st, 2023. And as you can see on that second line under employment authorization, that says STEM OPT full-time requested. And so this is what your I-20 is going to look like. Next slide, please. You must apply for STEM OPT extension to USCIS before your OPT end date. So if this particular student whose I-20 we just saw, if their end date is June 30th, they should apply before their OPT end date. It is important that you give yourself enough time to file before that OPT end date. You want to request your you're going to want to request your updated I-20 from ISSA link. And so we ask that you give us about 3 weeks for us to process that. We want to make sure that when we receive your OPT I-20 STEM extension, that we have enough time to review your I-983, that we have enough time to follow up with you in case there is something that's missing. Perhaps there's something missing in the letter. Perhaps there's something missing in the signature on the I-983. And so we want to give you and ourselves enough time for you to have your I-20 in a timely manner, which is why we ask that you submit your request to ISSA at least 3 weeks in advance. Next slide. So you have 90 days to file. You can apply for your OPT extension 90 days before your OPT end date. And you also have 60 days after we issue you that OPT STEM extension I-20 to file with USCIS, which is a little different from the post-OPT. So we are going to be the ones to recommend you, and you are going to be the one to file. Just remember to make sure that you file and that you apply before your OPT end date. So before the date on your EAD card, that's the date that you want to make sure you file 90 days before that. Next slide. And so here's just another nice little visual. Again, we'll take back that student that was whose OPT end date was June 30th. So your OPT end date is June 30th. The last date that you want to file for your I-765 is June 29th. And then the first date that you can file would be April 1st. So that would be 90 days before your OPT end date. So technically, if this was your particular scenario, you can request your OPT extension I-20 on ISSA link today, and then be ready to file April 1st. So going back to those 60 days of when we issue you the OPT I-20, you would have 60 days from the day we give you your I-20 to file. If you don't file within those 60 days, you'll need to request another STEM OPT extension I-20 from us so that you can, so that the DSO signature is valid. Again, just refer to your EAD card, your OPT end date, as that is going to be the driving factor of when those 90 days before filing will happen. The next slide. So you're going to be filing your I-765. Again, I mentioned this before. Make sure that you're filing for the right application. The reason for applying here is going to be you are going to apply for initial permission to accept employment. Sometimes the options are renewal for employment, and that seems to be an intuitive answer to go ahead and answer with that. But this is the first time that you're filing for STEM OPT, and so it is the initial permission to accept employment. After you receive your I-20 from us, you are going to print it, you're going to sign it, and you're going to prepare the rest of your documents with it. Sign I-20 with their STEM OPT. Make sure that you also sign it after we issue it to you. Your passport, a 2x2 color passport style photo, your most recent I-94 record, your current post-completion OPT AD card. They will ask for a copy of that. And a little different from your post-OPT, you're going to need to submit your Notre Dame final transcript. So if you didn't complete your degree when you file for post-OPT, this needs to be finished by the time that you're applying for your STEM OPT extension. You're going to access your USCIS account. You're going to just, again, file another I-765, pay the filing fees. As of April, it's going to be a $470 filing fee. And you're just going to obsessively watch your USCIS account to see when your STEM extension OPT is approved. You will get a notice, a receipt that is valid for up to 180 days or until your new EAD card comes. And really what this means is that if this particular student who we were talking about has an OPT end date of June 30th, and this student is not approved by the time his OPT end date comes, this particular student can use that STEM extension OPT pending receipt for I-9 HR purposes. And this particular student can continue working up to 180 days or until his STEM OPT extension is approved. Next slide. Just a few mistakes that we want you to avoid. Some are very easy to do, but they're also very easy to avoid. Just don't file early. So if you do the math, do the calculator, do like a date calculator, we're also happy to help you. If you request your STEM OPT extension, it's too soon, we'll make sure to let you know this information. But don't file early. You have 90 days before your program end date to file. Don't file any earlier than that. file your I-765 before it, but definitely don't file 90 days before that. Choose a correct eligibility category. They all look very similar, C3, C3A, C3B. You are filing for C3C, which is the STEM OPT category. And make sure that you sign your I-20 once you receive it. We advise that you receive the I-20 from us. We will email it to you or be electronic. We would love for you to print it, sign it, and then upload it. It is sometimes very easy to just overlook and forget that signature from you, the student, and that will return in them maybe not approving it or asking for another I-20 that is signed. Lane, got the next one. Just a few things here to consider about premium processing. You can apply for premium processing at any point. You can submit your application and decide, I don't think I need premium processing. I think I'm within a nice, timely manner. I think I should be okay. And then if you decide later that actually I think I do want to pay for premium processing to get this going, then you can do so at that point. The cost is $1,685. That's on top of the EAD I-765 application fee. So it is pricey. And also remember, you do have up to 180 days to work, even if you don't have your EAD card in hand. The premium processing ensures that you get a decision about your authorization. So within 30 days of them receiving your application, they will decide whether they approve, whether they're requesting more evidence or whether they're denying, but it does not account for the EAD card to be sent out. So they can approve you in 30 days and you might still have to wait additional time for that EAD card to come. USCIS processing notes. Let us know if your application is denied, if it's rejected. We want to help you. We want to have you have a successful STEM OPT extension. So if for whatever reason you are denied or asked for anything further evidence, come talk to us, reach out to us. Remember, we are still continuing to support you throughout your STEM OPT time. Again, you can continue to work for 180 days. Premium processing is available at any point. So I'm just sort of repeating some of the information that I just went over with you, just so that to make sure that you understand it. And USCIS does not guarantee processing times or assist your timeline if your timeline is normal. So unfortunately, we cannot pick up the phone or we cannot email USCIS if they are still considering a normal timeline, which can be frustrating for students who are just anxious to know whether or not their STEM OPT extension was approved. But just note that there isn't a mechanism for us to check in on that. So as long as it's filed in a timely manner. A few notes about employment. I'm sorry, Elaine, can you scoot one more? Thank you. You are allowed to have multiple employers under STEM OPT. Similarly to how you were able to have them during your post-OPT. The only difference here is that if you have multiple employers, every employer must have an I-983 form. So if you're working with Company A has to have the I-983 form. If you're working with Company A and B, you need your completed I-983 for both of those employers. You can work remotely as long as you continue to maintain your status otherwise. And a reminder that STEM OPT is US-based work authorization for US-based employment. STEM OPT would not be appropriate for you to just decide that you're going to work remotely indefinitely, that you're going to go back home or work from a different country for long periods of time. It would be for US based employment. If you are physically in the US working remotely for a non-US employer, that would defeat the purpose of a US authorization to work for a US based employer, and so it is not appropriate for these situations. And the last thing to note is that self-employment, it is not permitted while you're on STEM OPT. This is a little different from post-OPT where you have the flexibility of doing that. But there has to be a supervisor and a supervisory and they have to have a supervisory role over the student. So you definitely need somebody to supervise you because that is part of the I-983 training plan. And so self-employment would not be permitted here. And I think with that, I'm going to pass it on to Elaine.
Thank you. I've been seeing a lot of Q&A questions regarding H-1B and travel. Know that we'll hold off answering those questions because we're going to be presenting some information about H-1B and travel later on. So we're going to cover that in a little bit. So my time again is about reporting responsibility on STEM OPT. The fun part about STEM OPT is always the reporting part. That is the distinct difference from post-completion to STEM OPT. So your responsibility as a STEM OPT holder, what you're gonna do, STEM OPT is a two-step reporting. In the past, when you are post-completion OPT, you can either report to SEVP portal or you can either report it to ISSA link. Unfortunately, if you're on STEM, you would have to go on to SEVP portal, report it, check and continually or periodically verifying your information. For example, your address to check whether you are still working in that that's your current employer, and you can use that to update your address on SEVP portal. Your next step is you'd have to report through ISSA link through ISSA your STEM OPT reporting form. So if you log on to ISSA link, on your left-hand side, there is a F1 practical training. Then there is a STEM OPT reporting form. There is a lot of reporting going on. Like I say before, every 6 months, you would have to do a reporting. So you have to do a reporting on the 6 months, the 12 months, the 18 months, and the 24 months of reporting. The 12 and the 24-month reporting would have to include an I-983 evaluation on page 5. So the top box is for the first 12 months, and then the bottom box is for final evaluation, which is the 24 months. Or if you end your employment with your employer, you would have to complete the second box, the final evaluation. And you would also have to submit an I-983 if you end an employment. And also, if you start a new employment, you would also have to include a new I-983. So there is a lot of reporting while you're on STEM OPT. Other responsibility through ISSA link is that you are on STEM OPT and you change of status. For example, a lot of you were talking about H-1B after STEM. There's very normal, or you are actually gonna go to do a change of level or transfer, or even departing or leaving the US permanently. You would have to go to ISSA link and complete the report of end of status. So make sure you report to us so that we can close STEM OPT status so that it's not running, and then your status is changed or is closed correctly. Failure to report the above information within the noted timelines may result in termination of your F1 status and your OPT status. So you probably want to take a very, very important note. A takeaway for today, something that you learn about STEM OPT after you request your OPT and everything, is the reporting responsibility that comes with STEM OPT. All right. Dose will probably put in the link for you on ISSA website. We do have a dedicated STEM OPT reporting website link that you can go and refer to. Okay, so reporting responsibility and accessing ISSA link after graduation. So after graduation, if you want to access ISSA link, you would have to go down to ISSA link for ND alum, right? And then click login here. You would request a limited access PIN. I know if a lot of you are on OPT, most likely you already report it to us, or even if you're requesting a STEM OPT I-20, you would have to go through ISSA link. So you would choose the bottom part, just scroll all the way down that you are ND alum and you logged in here, you'll be given a limited service access PIN, plugged it in, then you are in ISSA lane. Next, we're going to talk about unemployment and STEM OPT. Within the 24 months of STEM OPT authorization period, F1 students are allowed an additional 60 days of unemployment, making the total of 150 cumulative days, right? Including those has been used while you're on post-completion OPT. So post-completion OPT, we say that you have 90 days of unemployment days. STEM OPT gave you an additional 60 days. So in total, you would have 150 days of cumulative days of unemployment days. So I'm going to be very clear. If you have used your post-completion OPT unemployment day, it will be deducted from that total 150 days, right? You are not getting 150 days more. You are just getting 60 days more on top of your current 90 days unemployment days of your current OPT unemployment days. So if you really use up all the 90 days of unemployment days while you're on OPT, post-completion OPT, then during STEM OPT, you only have 60 days of unemployment left, okay? Hopefully you are clear on that. How do you count unemployment days? Between start date on post-completion OPT employment authorization, EAD, and the end date of your STEM OPT. So the 150 days is both your EAD card start till end date, right? You have 150 days. You count all the days, including weekends and holidays during unemployment. Good Friday is coming up, or Easter is coming up, Memorial Day, 4th of July, it is still considered a day if you're not being employed, all right? So you count any week employed fewer than 20 hours as a week of unemployment. So if you're working for STEM OPT, it has to be 20 hours or more to be considered full-time. If you drop down less than 20 hours, that is considered your unemployment days as well. You're considered unemployed because you drop down. You're not maintaining status if you drop less than 20 hours. So you count the days outside the US if you are unemployed as well. Let's just say, hey, you have your EAD card, you travel out, your EAD card start date starts, you don't have a job, that time while you're outside of the US, it counts as unemployment as well. Okay, you do not receive additional 60 days of STEM OPT unemployment until your STEM OPT is approved. So a lot of you, if you're on OPT, you already use up your 90 days of unemployment. Our advice is continue to work until your STEM OPT is approved and start. Because if you stop for a week or even stop for a day, if you already use up all your 90 days of unemployment, you're automatically out of status then, no matter whether your STEM OPT is approved later on. So make sure that that 60 days of unemployment only comes after your STEM OPT is approved and you have your EAD card at hand. It will be considered a violation of F1 status to go over the 150 days of unemployment days. So if you have used more than that 150 days of unemployment days, a lot of times what we see that why students have that cumulative day so much because they do not report the employment with us, that they forget about their STEM OPT reporting, and then they were like, okay, I end my employment, but then when I start my employment, you never report it to us. That day continued to count, all right? So we're going to hit this big part, travel and STEM OPT. So what is travel and STEM OPT? How does that work? So after post-completion EAD card authorization end date, your STEM OPT application is pending. This is one of the questions that was asked, I think, in the Q&A, that how am I going to do that, right? Can I travel? Our advice is do not travel. This is the riskiest time for you to exit the United States, right? USCIS may send you a RFE. If you're not present in the US, you may not be able to respond within the deadline, or they may be seeing you a lot of time travel outside of the US while an application is pending might be seen as you're abandoning your application. If application is denied while the student is outside of the US, the F1 status is automatically completed. All right. So after post-completion EAD card authorization end date, STEM OPT application is approved. You may travel with the same level of risk as any other F1 student status. A lot of times we tell that you actually travel with your approval notice, with your EAD card, similarly your I-20, valid visa, your passport, and make sure your I-20 have a travel signature. If your F1 visa has expired or will soon be expiring, we would recommend that you wait until your STEM OPT is approved before exiting the US to renew your visa stamp. The rationale behind this is that after your STEM OPT is approved, you have the additional 2 years. So when you renew your visa, they might probably renew and give you that duration of time that you have while your STEM OPT is being approved, right? Because your OPT is ending soon. You travel, you go get your visa, they might give you that 1 week, 2 weeks, or 2-3 months, whatever the length of the month you have left on your post-completion EAD. So do make plan and wait till you have your STEM OPT approved, then get your visa renewed so that you know that you have that 24 months of visa, right? All right. H-1B and STEM OPT application. This is another hot topic, a lot of students ask this question about STEM OPT and H-1B. Can I apply for the H-1B and STEM OPT at the same time? The answer is yes. These are separate petition to USCIS. Your employer can sponsor and apply H-1B, put your name on the lottery for you. It does not conflict a STEM OPT application. We generally, we usually, or most likely a lot of times, we would advise for you and recommend that you maintain your F1 status until your other status is being approved, or you have the approval notice of your new status. So remain in F1 until your H-1B is approved, so that you have a status, right, until your H-1B is approved. If I get chosen in the H-1B lottery, when would my status change? Usually on the H-1B lottery, your status would change October 1st. If you are chosen in the lottery, we recommend that you reach out to us when you have the approval notice so that we can ensure your service record is updated. A lot of times, while you file, you would have your I-20 that you file, right? Make sure you let us know that you have your H-1B approval so that we'll make sure that if there is a gap between your STEM OPT and your H-1B, a lot of times if you file the H-1B, they'll automatically give you that gap, like they call it a cap gap, that you can continue to work up until you are your H-1B kicks in October. All right. So the last question, do I need to work for future H-1B sponsor employer while on STEM OPT? These are separate application and distinct regulation around employment. So you can or you cannot. It really depends, it's very distinct. You can be on a STEM OPT and another employer want to file H-1B for you. That's fine. They can do that, right? Or your STEM OPT employer wants to file H-1B for you, they can do that as well. So that is between you and your employer or your future employer. Okay. Frequently asked questions. So some of the questions that we usually, when we hear from student about STEM OPT, is like, what is my status while I'm on STEM OPT? Your status is continually to be F1 status. You still hold an I-20. Your STEM OPT is recommended or requested on your I-20. So you are still an F1 status. Okay. The second question, should I still apply for STEM OPT if my employer is planning to sponsor me for the H-1B visa category? Like I said, ISSA advisor will always advise that you apply for STEM OPT so that you have your F1 status until your H-1B is being approved. So if something happened, right, the H-1B, they're sponsoring you, but sometimes H-1B is a lottery. Whether you get that lottery or not, nobody knows. So STEM OPT, at least you know that you file for it, you're on pending, you most likely get approval for it, not like a H-1B lottery, right? So a lot of times we tell students, stay on your F1 status, stay on STEM OPT, that 2 years until you get your H-1B approval, okay? And a lot of times, STEM OPT might be a saving grace for you guys too, because you have 2 years and you have 2 times to go on that lottery, right? Depending on the timeline. So if you do not know much about the timeline and you are thinking about the timeline, make an appointment, speak with an advisor, will help you see your timeline. But a lot of times with H-1B lottery, which happened in April, and you do not know, and after you file, you only get to start in October. So what are your status in between? A lot of times that's why we advise that you continue to stay on STEM OPT or F1 status until your H-1B is being approved. The third question, if I don't use my STEM extension now, can I save it for later? Question is, it depends. So STEM OPT, as I mentioned before, you can only use it 2 times in your whole lifetime, right? You can save it now for another degree level, higher degree level. But then the thing is that if you're currently on OPT, and then if you're not applying for STEM, you are done for the academic level you are in. If you're a PhD student, that is your higher level, I would say, no, you cannot save it anymore. This is your only chance. If you're currently on an OPT, PhD level on an OPT, this is your only chance for STEM OPT. There's no higher level education that you can use your STEM OPT or OPT at all anymore. If you're a bachelor level student, if you're currently on a bachelor degree, you say, I'm going to save my 2 STEM for master's and PhD, then go ahead, you can save that 2 STEMs. You just say that, okay, now I'm bachelor's, I'm not good, I'm doing my OPT, I'm just going to go to grad school, I'm going to save my STEM OPT, my 2 STEM OPT for master's and PhD level, then yes, go ahead and save it. But if you're currently a master's student on OPT, you haven't used STEM before, and you're thinking of doing a PhD, then go ahead and do your STEM, right? That's 2 years. And then once you're in a higher level in PhD, OPT, you do your OPT and then you do your STEM. Again, I'm gonna emphasize on this, STEM extension can only follow a post-completion OPT, right? You would lose your chance after OPT done. You cannot just apply STEM extension just by itself. STEM extension needs to follow a post-completion OPT. I hope that is clear enough. If you have question, feel free to type it out or ask us after the presentation. The fourth one is, what happens if I exceed my days of an unemployment? Very straight answer, you're out of status. Your status might probably be terminated. You're out of status. If you use up that 150 days of unemployment, you're out of status. If you continue to stay in the United States, you will be seen as accumulating unlawful presence. So a lot of times we tell students that you probably want to leave the country or be prepared to leave the country a day before you hit that mark of the maximum day of your unemployment days. So that is a very straightforward answer. You will be out of status. I will pass the last 3 questions to my colleague, Dulce.
Thank you, Elaine. So the last few questions, my employer is not e-verified, but will be in the future. Can I apply for STEM OPT now? Remember, one of the requirements for working for this particular employer is that they are e-verify, so that you can switch positions later when that company becomes an e-verify employer. But at the time of your STEM OPT application, the employer that you are working with must be e-verify. They can do it. You can switch positions later, but no. So the answer is no. what happens to my F2 dependents while I'm STEM OPT? They will continue to be under your status. So as long as you are maintaining your F1 status, they are linked to your particular status. So if you have to depart because you've exceeded unemployment days, then so will they. But as long as you're maintaining all of your F1 status, they should be okay as well. The last question is, my employer's legal counsel is preparing my STEM OPT application for me. Can I file via paper application? Yes. So whatever the company policy is, there's bigger companies or bigger firms that are used to hiring students on OPT, and STEM OPT have their own immigration department and have their own resources and their own ways of submitting STEM OPT applications or working with their students who are under STEM OPT. So it is whatever the company's requirement is for you to file, you can continue to do it that way. The only thing would be that we just advise that you don't file for STEM OPT and your employer file for STEM OPT. There should only be one STEM OPT application happening there. We're getting ready to wrap up, Elaine. If you want to go to the last page. A few of the main takeaways. Really, this is our last slide. I just want to, again, go over a little bit of what we went over today. Remember, you are driving this process. You are responsible for maintaining your status, for managing your applications, for reporting those timelines. One of the things that we do here to help you is send you a lot of reminders to let you know about what's happening, to let you know what deadline you're about to come up, the 6-month reporting, 12-month reporting, etc. We would advise that you put a little calendar reminder to you, just 6 months into the future, report for STEM OPT. This way, you're not just relying on our communication. Also, let us know if there is a different email that you switch to, if you're no longer receiving messages to your other email, just so that we know how to reach you and send you all those reminders. Remember that if you have a job you must have a job offer that meets the STEM OPT employment requirements in order to apply for the STEM OPT extension. Remember, it has to be E-Verify. You have to have a supervisor. You cannot be self-employed, that kind of information. Again, your F1 status is tied to the University of Notre Dame through your OPT and your STEM OPT authorization period. So keep communicating with us. Keep asking us questions. Any changes to your immigration status. If you are now an H-1B, let us know. If you've decided that you are no longer going to stay under STEM OPT or you're going to depart, please let us know about those decisions. There's ways of reporting that on ISSA link, which Elaine showed you a few slides back. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Our next slide is just a little bit about how we are accessible to you and how we are available. You can email us. You can send us an email. We have walk-in hours if you're still on campus or still in South Bend. We have virtual drop-in advising. Those are kind of nice and convenient between the hours of 9 to 11, Monday through Thursday. Someone's always accessible for you to just pop in with whatever questions, no appointment needed. And then we also have virtual appointments, and those are by appointment, and you can book those on our ISSA website, issa.nd.edu/advising. Other than that, we thank you guys for coming. We are happy that we can provide this information. We hope that we've given you enough information about STEM OPT. Don't hesitate to reach out. We will stick around for some questions that you may have. I know there's a few on the chat that we might be able to answer really quick. Elaine, I will answer one of the first ones that we have here. It's, do we need to fill separate I-983 for current and previous employers? So the I-983 form is completed by your current employer, but if you're going to end that position and you are going to find a new position, then your employer needs to complete the final evaluation page. So page 5 of the I-983 form. And your new employer will need to complete the new I-983 training form with you. So yes, so at any point that you end employment with with a company, you will need to submit another, you'll need to submit the final evaluation, and then you'll need to complete another I-983 for your new employer. Elaine, do you want to tackle the next one?
Yes, I can do that. The next question is, where can I check how many unemployment days are left on my status? This is very tricky. You would have to you would have to track it yourself. Otherwise, a lot of time, just email ISSA. We're able to go in and look it up for you. I'm not too sure if you log into SEVP portal, you are able to see sometimes there is like different tab that you can see that I'm not mistaken, especially for STEM OPT, you get to see that they might remind you to your 6 months OPT reporting is up and all these different things. But for unemployment days, I'm very sure that you would have to track it. It becomes your responsibility. You would have to track your unemployment days on your own. If you have difficulty on that, you probably want to look at your EAD card, the start date, and then just count how many days you are not working. Otherwise, just email ISSA and we'll look into that for you. Okay. The next question is, if my employer was not previously e-verified, can they go ahead and do it now before I apply for STEM OPT? Yes, hopefully they'll get e-verify in time. We are not expert on e-verify and how long company will get e-verify. You can work with your employer and see how that process is gonna be. So I'm gonna defer that and leave that between you and your employer. If they are able to get e-verify in time for you to file your STEM OPT before your OPT end date, then great. Otherwise, I want to say don't risk it. You probably want to start looking elsewhere too. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And if you really want STEM, you might want to start looking at STEM OPT employer that is e-verify. So the next question we have is, if I work with multiple employers, am I supposed to report for both of them for the 6, 12, and 24 months? Yes. Every 6 months, you are going into SEVP portal to validate 6, 12, you are missing 18 months. So there's 4 times that you will have to report. The 6 months and the 18 months, you go into SEVP portal, validate that yes, you're actually working for this employer, and then you report to ISSA to say that yes, you're working for this employer. You just go in and validate. The 12-month, the 24 months, you would have to complete a evaluation. So every 12 months. So for both employer, you have 2 different I-983 for 2 different employer. So you would have to complete 2 separate 12-month and 24-month evaluation, and you would have to submit multiple ISSA reporting e-form on there. If you have both, great. Attach both STEM OPT I-983 in there, and then we'll go ahead and validate your report for you.
Elaine, we have one more on the chat. I have not been unemployed during OPT. Do I have 150 more days?
Yes and no. I answered that question privately, I think, to the student. If you're unemployed during OPT, you are using your 90 days of unemployed post completion OPT unemployment. The 150 days is a combination. So only STEM OPT, after STEM OPT is approved, then you have the additional 60 days. The other question more important here is that for STEM OPT, you need to have an employer sponsor. You need to have an employment to apply for STEM OPT. If you're unemployed, you don't have an employer, you are not even eligible to apply for STEM OPT at all. So if you are, yep, go ahead.
Ellen, I think the question was misunderstood. If this particular student has not used any of her unemployment days, so she still has 90 days of unemployment.
Yep.
When she files for her STEM OPT extension. So at that point, when she's approved for STEM OPT and has not touched her unemployment dates, she would indeed have 150
Yes,
unemployment. Got
Yes.
it.
So when your STEM OPT, thank you for clarifying that question. Thank you so much. So yes, once your STEM OPT is approved, then you have that 150 days during your STEM OPT to use that. So yes, you do. The other question here is that if I apply for TPS, does it affect OPT application? If you use your TPS EAD card, then yes, it will affect your OPT because once you use your TPS EAD card, you are no longer an F1. You are pretty much foregoing your F1 status. You can be on TPS status, but use your OPT F1 EAD card. So this is very tricky. I want to say that you probably want to make an appointment with an advisor to talk about your TPS and your OPT application or your OPT EAD card. But very clearly, you can apply for TPS status and have both F1 and TPS. And then, but once you have a TPS EAD card and you used it, then your F1 status is out the window. So be very careful on that. I hope that you actually make an appointment or drop in or walk in and talk to an advisor on that if you are thinking about TPS EAD. But just TPS status, you are fine. But once you touch the TPS EAD card, it will affect your F1 status. So I'm going to hop on to the Q&A. The next question here is there a guide to what ISSA recommend that we write in the training plan? Unfortunately, we cannot guide you to write what to write on a training plan, right? Because that training plan is between you and your employer. You would have to set your goal, you would have to set your objective, and all these different things while you are in OPT. So I'm going to go back to this slide here as we talk. I-983 training plan. So where is it at? Right here. Right. A training plan is defined the student, your role, your goals, your objective, your employer oversight. So ISSA does not have a guide for that. It is very individual. It is your training plan for you, your employer, and you made that training plan. So you would have to do that. The only thing that we can guide you is the first page, the section 1 student information page. Otherwise, as we stated up here, we can help you with section 1, but otherwise ISSA cannot provide guidance on completing I-983 because the I-983 training plan is solely between you and your employer. All right, so you would have to work with your employer. There is part that you fill out. There is part that your employer would have to fill out. Okay. The next one, do unemployment days start counting since the start date listed on the EAD card? Yes. So, a lot of times STEM OPT follows your post-completion OPT. So if your post-completion OPT ends June 30th, a lot of your STEM OPT start July 1st. So that EAD card would continue. That's why you can continue to work for 180 days while your STEM OPT is pending, right? They let you continue to work while it's pending. So yes, your unemployment days start counting when the start of your EAD card. All right. I guess we do not have any more questions, or do we? Do we?
I think that covers all of it. I'm going to stop recording now.
All right. Thank you. Um,